They said the women only dance at Craigh once a year, but no one ever explained why the stones hummed back. The wind rises, torches flare in the darkness, and somewhere beyond the Scottish hills, the ancient ritual begins. The wind rose slowly over the Scottish hills, as if something ancient were breathing beneath the earth itself. Twilight settled over the highlands, and the last traces of sunlight painted the stones of Craigh in dark gold. Claire stood beside Frank, pulling her light coat tighter around her shoulders. She had never liked the cold, but tonight, the shiver running through her had nothing to do with the wind. At the top of the hill, women in long black cloaks moved in silence around the standing stones. Slowly, gracefully, as if the dance had begun centuries ago and had never truly ended. The music was faint, strange, haunting, almost like the whisper of the earth itself. Frank leaned closer. "Local folklore," he said quietly. "Old druid rituals, probably connected to Samhain." But Claire barely heard him. Her eyes were fixed on one particular woman, tall, motionless beneath a dark hood. Every time she passed the central stone, the wind grew stronger, as though the hill recognized her. A strange uneasiness spread through Claire's chest. The entire scene felt unreal. Torches flickering in the dusk, shadows moving between ancient stones, voices rising with the wind. And then she noticed something impossible. The women weren't leaving footprints in the wet ground. Claire blinked. The footprints appeared, then vanished again. She told herself it was only the mist playing tricks on her eyes. The dancers raised their arms toward the sky, and suddenly the air around the stones began to hum. Not music, not sound, something deeper, as though the stones themselves had awakened. Frank touched her arm. "We should go, it's getting late." But Claire couldn't move, because at that exact moment, one of the cloaked women slowly turned toward her. The hood concealed her face. Only her eyes were visible, pale, far too pale. And Claire felt an overwhelming certainty that this stranger somehow knew her name. The dance quickened. Black cloaks spun through the torchlight. Ancient carvings flickered across the surface of the stones. And for one impossible second, Claire could have sworn the stones were breathing. She stepped backward. The earth trembled beneath her feet. The women's chanting grew louder. The words were in Gaelic, yet somehow Claire understood them perfectly. Blood remembers the path. The stones open for those who already belong to the past. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Frank took her hand and guided her down the hill, almost by force. When they looked back one final time, the women were gone, as if they had never been there at all. Only the wind circled through the tall grass, and somewhere in the darkness the music still lingered. That night Claire could not sleep. The old cottage creaked beneath the storm outside. Rain tapped against the windows. Frank was already asleep, but Claire kept hearing the same low hum from the hill. She walked to the window. Craigh was barely visible in the distance, and yet she felt certain someone was standing there among the stones, watching, waiting. She remembered the pale-eyed woman from the dance, and suddenly one terrible thought crossed her mind. The dancers had not been moving around the stones. They had been moving around someone unseen, as though someone had already been standing inside the circle. The next morning, Claire returned to the hill alone. The sky was grey and heavy with rain, But the closer she came to the stones, the stronger the feeling became. As though something was calling her home, the stones stood silent, ancient, cold. Yet the air surrounding them felt strangely warm. Too warm. Claire stepped toward the central stone and placed her hand against its rough surface. And then she heard it. A whisper, soft, barely audible, a woman's voice. "You're 200 years too late." Claire spun around. No one was there, only the wind. She took a step back and noticed something strange near the base of the stone. Fresh, barefoot footprints in the mud, as though someone had danced there during the night. The footprints led directly toward the stone and disappeared, not away from it, into it. Scottish legends say that during Samhain, the boundary between worlds grows thin. Standing among the stones, Claire suddenly understood why. This was never simply a dance. It was a ritual, an ancient ceremony meant to open a path between time itself. The women had not been dancing for the gods. They had been calling for someone, and somehow, Claire feared that person was her. She knelt near the footprints and noticed a silver charm hidden beneath the moss. Old, delicately carved with a spiral symbol. The moment she touched it, the air around the stones vibrated violently. The humming returned, deep, alive. Images exploded through her mind. Torches, spinning cloaks, blood on stone. A tall, red-haired warrior holding a sword, and a voice whispering, "You've already been here before." Claire gasped and dropped the charm. The humming stopped instantly. Silence swallowed the hill. Far away, a raven cried into the mist. Claire stared at the central stone. A fresh handprint had appeared on its surface, as though someone had touched it. From the other side. By evening, the sky had turned nearly black. Claire could not stop thinking about the dancers. The more she remembered the ritual, the clearer it became. This had never been folklore. It had been an invitation, a doorway waiting to open. That night, Claire dreamed she stood once more inside the stone circle. Torches burned against the darkness. The women danced faster and faster around her. One of them approached slowly and lowered her hood. An old woman with silver hair stared back at Claire, but her face seemed terrifyingly familiar. The old woman smiled softly. "Time does not move in a straight line, Claire." "Who are you?" Claire whispered. The woman's pale eyes gleamed in the firelight. "The one you become, if you remain between worlds." The chanting rose louder. The stones began to hum again, and before the dream dissolved, the old woman leaned close and whispered, "When you hear the music again, don't turn around." Claire awoke suddenly before dawn. The room was cold. Rain tapped softly against the glass, and somewhere far beyond the hills, the druid's song was still echoing through the dark.
Thank you for listening to my story to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Watch it to the end and see the finished painting, which I also painted.